E204? Okay, analog circuits. So I have to start the class with an interesting story. 33 years ago, I was on that other side, in the same class. Okay, so and I was, I think, one of the front benchers. Unfortunately, I didn't do like the backbench kidas, at that time. But I had very inspirational teachers who made a difference to me, and they kind of convinced me by not personally convincing, but with their teaching and their effectiveness to stay in this field. And since I have graduated, I've been in this field for 33 years. So I've been doing chip design, RF, analog, mixed signal chip design all my life. And I worked in the industry for many, many years. So that the tone of practical, chip design will come into my lectures, unfortunately or fortunately. But hopefully that you will enjoy that piece of it. So the purpose of this class is really simple. How many of you are here? How many of you took electrical engineering because you thought it was cool, or this is what you wanted to do in your life? Just raise quick hands. I will not hold it against you. Okay. So very few. Maybe 10% of the people are here because they want to do electrical engineering. How many of you are here because that's the highest ranked department that you can get? Okay. No, it's okay. You have to be honest, right? When you start the life here. How many of you want to continue in electrical engineering? Okay, I see a lot more hands. That's good. So maybe the E101 has made some difference. Okay, good. How many of you really don't want to do anything in electrical engineering? They just want to get a good job, maybe in a bank or be in an IAS or something like that. Just be honest. Okay. Did you understand the question? How many of you really here just to get the IIT stamp, and then get into business, nothing to do with electrical engineering, make good money, just raise your hand. I want to see. Okay, good. So not that many. It's okay. So, okay, the purpose of this class is I would like to make it interesting for you, whatever I'm going to do. I hope to make a difference to your thinking that electrical engineering is cool, because I think it's really cool. Okay. There are many students who come to me who are kind of confused. Should I go to computer science or this and that, right? So the electrical engineering is very unique in a sense that you can do anything and everything except for maybe build roads or do some chemical, chemistry and things like that. I'm sure you can do that too because you got the first. But you have, and many of the electrical engineers are involved in fabrication, IC fabrication, which is a lot of chemistry, processes that you have to handle. So electrical engineering is very unique in that sense that you have exposure to pretty much all aspects of life that we touch every day. Okay. So the purpose of this class is to, not really, make you do equations and kind of get really worked up about your exams, but to hopefully inspire you to play with things. Let's get started. So the class is about analog circuits, right? Does everybody know what analog is? Yes, no? No? What is analog and what is digital? Digital is ones and zeros, right? There is defined state 1 or a 0. And so in contrast, what is analog? It's continuous waveform, right, that you deal with. So can you think of a single example? Okay, I'll give you an A straight away in the class. If you can think of a single example in the nature around you, everything that you're doing, which is digital in nature, okay? Can you think of anything? There's one answer I know, but I won't give you credit for that. So anything that's digital in nature around you, right? You receive so many signals. You hear sound, you see light, you see colors, everything. Is it anything that's digital in nature? No? So one smart kid in my class, instant I said that, he said life and death, right? It's digital in nature. But then it's not reversible. Once you die, you cannot come back to life. So I wanted to get an example which is more reversible, where you can see 1 or 0. Okay, all right. So this class is about handling all the analog signals. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. So it gets interesting, exciting, and as electrical engineers, if you kind of get into this, right? What is it all about working somewhere, right? When you work somewhere, you want to do something that you've spent a lot of time in it, right? And you get better and better and better at it. Now, in this particular field, the field of circuit design, or field of analog, digital, RF, mixed signal circuit design, which is what I'm trying to get you motivated about, it's a unique branch of electrical engineering where you get better and better and better every year, because you learn many, many tricks. Because there are so many tricks which are there that you just can't learn in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, right? So I've been doing it for 33 years and I'm still learning, trust me, okay? So what's the advantage of that when you get a job or you start a company in that area? You're very valuable to the company, okay? Because they appreciate all the years that you put in as experience. And you're very valuable from compensation point of view. You're very valuable from your rankings in the industry. Also, there are many companies, because the whole world is analog. Eventually, you have to get from that analog signal to place where you can process it digitally with software or anything like that, right? And so final world, in and out is all analog. The speaker, the sound that you hear on the phone is all analog, right? The hi-fi system that you have is all analog. The TV is analog. The final thing is analog, lights that you see, right? Even though there is digital TV, right? So you are kind of in that space where you're between the machine and the real world, in a sense, right? And that's something that's never going to go away. There used to be 10 years ago, people said that analog guys are dead, okay? Because everything is going to be replaced by software, computer, blah, blah, blah. Ain't happening, because things are getting more and more and more complicated, which makes us innovate all the time continuously to do better, better, better. Okay, so with this class, what I'm trying to do is not take you that far, but teach you all the basic tricks, basic fundamentals, which will enable you to do not just circuit design, but any field that you are in, right? Let's say you're in power. You will be able to use all these concepts. You will be able to play with, because everywhere you will see electrical components, and there are very few electrical components. So how do you put them together and how do you make things work? So that's what I'm going to teach you in this class. Okay, so let's get started. I would recommend you take notes because I don't believe in learning just by seeing. You got to take your own notes. The notes will be available for you later on, but take your own notes, because my notes are not very, there's a lot of stuff that happens live which is not recorded in the notes. So you have to take your notes, okay? So let me take you one example that I worked on in the first job that I joined. After graduating with my PhD, my first job was at Motorola. Does anybody know Motorola? All of you? Oh, okay. The Motorola radio, phones are here, but early days Motorola used to be very popular for radios. At that time, there were no cell phones. Okay, so it was all communication, wireless communication. Motorola was the king. Okay, and I was part of a division which would make chips for radio communication. So these are the radios that I had something to do with. Okay, right after I graduated, I designed a chip in that, and I was part of a big team, and I had my own piece of real estate there, which I was designing. If you look at radios, what is radio really doing? You're transmitting over long distance from one place to another, right? That's what you're doing. And you're able to communicate with your phones. So I'm going to kind of take it down to really fundamental thing that's happening inside the radio, okay? What is really going on? So we have a microphone. Okay, this is where you're speaking. Let's say this is your mouth. Okay, and that signal is being transmitted. TX, transmit, and that goes on to antenna. That's the way you show an antenna, with three things like this. Okay, and then somebody else who's far away. Okay, then you have a receiver, RX, and then what's out here? You have a speaker. All right. So when you talk, what is the frequency of the signals that you're sound? 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, right? Okay. So this is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. All right. Now, when this signal is being transmitted over the air, okay, this is transmitted at higher frequency. It's, let's say, in this particular case, these radios that I'm going to demonstrate to you, it's about 460 megahertz, rounding it up. It's 462 to 467 megahertz. All right. And on the other side, you receive that radio waves, those radio waves, and then you perform the receiver operation, and then the sound comes out at what frequency again? Has to be again the same, 20 to 20 kilohertz. All right. So do you know why we'd go to 460 megahertz or any higher frequency? Does anybody know? If you know, raise your hand quickly. Okay. One of the reasons, is you go to higher frequencies is because you need an antenna to transmit signal, right? The size of the antenna is proportional to the wavelength of the signal. So for example, if you look at 460 megahertz, the lambda, everybody knows the equation, right? For lambda, okay, lambda is about 65 centimeters, okay? Now, if you look at an antenna that's lambda 4 type of antenna, then this becomes something like 16.25 centimeters. So this is manageable. And if you remember those old phones, any one of the old phones, you always saw that thing sticking out, right? And that is the antenna. Now, in this case, I have kind of broken down the antenna to show you how. Can you see the wires here? Can you see there is a coil on top? That's the piece of antenna. So probably if you stretch it up, it probably will be 16 centimeters, okay? Otherwise, it will be too long, okay? And so all the newer phones don't have an antenna. Your iPhone or your Android phones, they don't have an antenna. So how do they really transmit? You don't see something sticking out, right? Okay, so the antenna technology has been developed quite a lot. So the antenna is part of the package inside, okay? And now it's, you don't have to deal with the thing sticking in your pocket and getting stuck anywhere. All right, so that's part of the evolution in technology. Now, what is really going on when we're going from 20 kilohertz to 460 megahertz? Okay, so you use something called modulation. What is modulation? We know that we would like to use 460 or higher frequency. So modulation is what do we do with the modulation? You're taking your signal, desired signal, and you're modifying another surrogate signal or a carrier signal and modifying its property so that you can transmit over a long distance. All right. And then there is next one that comes is demodulation. In demodulation, what do? We take that high frequency signal and then we remove the information out of it. All right. And that information, we bring it back to normal. That's what we do. So that's modulation and demodulation. So let's take an example here. What I would like to show you is just for the kicks of it, because it's an interesting exercise. Maybe you can give one radio to somebody at the last of the class. Okay, so these radios, you will probably laugh at it, but at that time, you know how much they used to sell for? And we couldn't make enough of it. $300, one radio, okay? The reason is that at that time, there was no cellular communication technology. I'm talking about 94, 95 at that time. So this is a family radio service that Motorola pitched for, and then, so the purpose was very simple. Let's say you're a family or you're a bunch of guys going on a camping trip, different cars. You want to communicate with each other directly, not through a cellular phone or anything like that. So this is for free, you get to communicate with each other. So for example, I can give it to my parents who live in Mulund and I can talk to them over the air. Although it would be illegal to do it over here because that frequency is not allocated for this kind of communication over here, okay? But in US it is. So we're going to use it for a very short time just to show you how this thing works. So you turn it on and there is a number here, 810. That's kind of like your phone number, okay? So the 8 can change, the 10 can change, and you go on to different channel with different coding. And then we can start another one over here. Maybe you can give it to somebody at the end over there. Okay. Just the reason is so that we can see. Hello, can you hear me? Well, I think it's better that he talks to me so I can show you that So you have to press the button. There is a push to talk. All right, press the middle button and talk to me.
Hello.
Can you hear? Okay, so you get the point, right? So this is kind of a wireless communication device that we worked on. So this looks very simple, and kind of stuff like this is inside your cell phone. That's where my point is. Okay, you're communicating with each other with these kind of things, but technology is very similar. Okay, but this is the reason I'm showing you this technology. It's analog technology. Everything is analog. At that time, everything that we were doing was analog. Over a period of time, we got into digital, and we're going to learn all that stuff in the class. So inside the radio, if you look, I don't know if I can show you very clearly, but there are boards like this, right? You can see the board. It has tons of components, okay? And one of the main things is like this is what I worked on, is a chip, integrated circuits. I'm going to show you, open it up and show it to you. So this particular chip takes the signal which is coming from antenna, all right? And on the other side, it spits out speaker signal, all right? And the other side of the chip takes a microphone input and it ships the signal on the antenna. It's really simple. So this was one of the first single chip radios that was designed and was sold on the market. So Motorola was the first one to do that. After that, a lot of other companies came by, and this one is still selling. Now it sells for about maybe $30. Okay, and many people don't use it like you and me, but companies. Let's say you're in Reliance Fresh or you're in Walmart or things like that. There they use it to communicate with employees who are on the floor. So one person can talk and everybody else can listen and get the instructions at the same time. So that's what the radio is all about. So now where are we going to go with this, right? So if you look at this chip, right, I'm going to open it up for you and show you what's inside there. So if you open up the chip, it's a piece of silicon. Well, before that, how is the chip made, right? So you have something like a silicon wafer, okay? All of you can touch and feel before you leave, okay? Very thin. This is one of the startups that I was doing, and this one is for 10 gig optical networking, okay? This was done in year 2001 or so, and at that time, we could only do 2.5 gig, and my startup, we were doing 10 gig. Now, the thing is that this is about $4,000, let's say, this wafer. But this will give me about, give and take, maybe 600 chips, and each one of them I could sell at that time for $800. So you can, this is almost like $1 million, although stuff is not working here. That's why I'm showing it to you. Okay, so you can see the power of how much money can you make with this, right? So this one is worth a lot of money. Okay, now so how much, how do you do that, right? So what do? We design the chips on the computer. Okay, it's like taking a photograph or doing an architect planning, right? You learn how to do things certain ways so that your architect doesn't go and put bricks. Right, so this is the way your circuit designer or architect. So you design everything on the computer and make sure that everything will work properly, and then you send this out for printing. So that's like a photograph process. You take, this is the base, the silicon is the base, and on which you print using printing technology for the simplicity of it. And then once you print it out, then you get this picture, and then you dice it up. Once you dice it up, the chip comes out to be this tiny. Can you see those tiny dots inside? Each one of them contain probably 100 to 200,000 transistors. Okay, each one of them. So they're so tiny. And then you wire bond them. You have to get external world signal in and out, right? So that's the process that happens after that. And then you pretty much sell the package chip. You have to test the chip and you sell the package chip outside market. You make a lot of money. And once you get it right, till you get it right, there is a lot of investment. You have to pay for all the prima donna analog designers who get paid a lot more money because they have this unique skill of doing the designs, right? And then you assume that they do all the things right. There is a lot of digital also on the chip nowadays, so the digital designers will come into play. And then you work together to develop a chip, okay? And once you send out a chip, you get the chip back, you do testing, you figure out all the bugs, and once everything is done and you tested it under all possible conditions, then you are ready to sell the chip. So you print these chips and you just start selling and you move on to a different project. And in that process, the company makes lots of money. They give you stock options, you become millionaires, right? That's kind of the short story that I'll tell. So I have done tons of startups, at least 4 or 5, 6, something like that. Yeah, many startups in this field. And although I'm not that wealthy, as you would like to imagine, but I'm doing this for fun. So I'm really enjoying whatever I've learned in this process to all of you, so that you get a piece of it when you move forward, right? Okay. So when you open up one chip further like this, this is the way it looks like. So this is one on the left side was the first chip that I worked on. Okay, maybe I'll show it here. Okay, do you see that chip? That's 0IF receiver chip. Okay, so in that chip, just one chip, the rest of the stuff is all support staff. Okay, they're just programming the chip, user interface, everything else. But the real core, heart of the chip of wireless transceiver is over there. So that wasn't really a good, I mean, it was expensive chip because you had to do everything on one chip. So then we ended up going to a 3-chip solution where you can see on the right side, do you see 3 chips? Okay, these ones. So this is the most expensive technology. This is the medium expensive technology, and this is the cheapest technology. And this one has all the digital, like all programming content. So this kind of shows you going from analog to digital, digital radio. So this one has everything communicates through digital. Okay, all right. Now, if you open up one of the chips, this is the way it looks like. Okay, so the piece of silicon that I showed you is that piece of cake in the middle here, right here, and those are gold wire bonds. Okay, so they come outside the chip, and that's where you connect the external world. Okay, now, so this is one of the blow-ups of one of the chips, which kind of shows you, can you see? Okay, various different blocks, and those dots at the end, the black pieces, this is the picture of the wire bond, okay, which is touching the chip. Then this is another chip where you have multiple, these are all called pads, okay, where you connect to the outside world. Now, inside the chip, right, if you look, you cut the cake. This is the way the cross section looks like. Unfortunately, I can write, I'm not able to write on it. Let me try one more time. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right, so I can show it right here. Okay, if you see this one. Okay, so the transistor, where is the transistor here? So do you see this part right here? That's called gate. We're going to learn all about it, but for now, just kind of soak it in that this part is the transistor right here. Okay, and this is the piece of metal which connects the transistor, and then out here in this area, it's all wire traffic. Okay, wires are going all over the place. Have all of you seen PC board? Okay, PC board. So PC board has tracks of copper, right, connecting from one place to another one. And then there are multi-layer PC boards where you have many layers, and there is the isolation in between, and there are vias. Vias are connections between one layer to another one. So this chip can have up to maybe 12 to 15 layers of metallization connections. So that means you can make so many connections from any point to any point. Okay, that gives you that freedom. And the transistor action is really happening at this point. All right, and then on the top here is basically you're going to the outside world. You're going to a pad. Now, this is all good when you look at the real chip, right? But then when you're designing, what are you really designing? So when you're designing, this is the way it looks like. Okay, so this particular picture that you're seeing is an inverter, CMOS inverter. Are you familiar with the word CMOS? You know what CMOS is, right? It's a transistor. We're going to learn all about it, bipolar transistors, CMOS transistor. Just for the sake of it, this is the way the picture looks like. So when you're designing a chip, you're actually designing all these things on the computer. Okay, you're putting all these things together just like an architect would put a 3D picture of in AutoCAD. You're doing that on the chip. And the cross section of the 3D view looks like this. Different, where is the transistor, where is the PMOS transistor, where is the NMOS transistor, and you're connecting them together. All right, so this is kind of just showing you and to get you excited how the thing looks like really inside, okay, nowadays. Now, so with that, we're going to go back to, with that introduction, we'll go back to the example and get into the details of it. So all of you are, feel free to take a look at it. This is another one of the old, very successful Motorola phones, which has the same technology. And here is, you can see that antenna, that used to stick out. I don't think any of you are familiar with what antenna is, right? Because none of you have probably seen it. So this is where, if you have a weak reception, maybe some of the old James Bond pictures, if you ever watch, they'll see this, the Bond doing that. So they're just trying to improve the reception by bringing the antenna out. All right. Let's kind of dig in a little more. I mean, we started from the high level. Now we are going to go inside the chip. Eventually, we'll reach the transistor. So if you look at one receiver example, this is the way it looks like. Antenna. And you can take the antenna signal and you can convert it to digital directly. Okay, there is a block that you will learn if you continue to play in this field called analog to digital converter. Okay, so you could take the signal and you could convert it to using an ADC. Okay, and then this is your analog signal. All right, and here is number of bits popping out of this block. All right, and then you could ship it to something called DSP. By the way, all of you have taken some form of DSP before? You will probably, right? Okay, all right. So that's digital signal processing. So once you convert it to bits, then you give it to another chip which will do some processing on it. Okay, and then after processing is done, you take those bits and you convert it from digital. Let's say this is M number of bits, and then the D2A converter will eventually feed to the speaker, pretty much. This is a very simple 0th order receiver, the way it looks like, right? The first I just showed you a box called receiver. Now here I'm showing you, you take the signal from the antenna, you convert it to digital using A to D converter, and then you process it with some, process the digital bits to take stuff, the information out of that signal, and then the final signal that or information that we get, we convert it to analog again, and then you listen to it on a speaker, something like that, right? So when you talk about A to D converter, right? For example, the speaker that I'm talking right now, here is a microphone. Well, it's a flip of it. So it's the other side which is receiving the signal, it's converting to digital, and then eventually it's going to your the speakers that you're listening to, right? Now, the signal that we thought of earlier was like 460 megahertz, right? That's what we were transmitting. Now, does everybody know what Nyquist theorem is? No? So let's say you have a certain frequency content in the signal, okay? Then you have to have your sampling rate, when you convert it to digital, has to be at least twice that. Okay, you will learn all this stuff. I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead. So if you have 460 megahertz, that means the sample rate or the rate at which I convert it to digital has to be what? At least 920 megahertz. That's a lot, huge number, right? So this is at least 920. So give and take 2 gigahertz, 1 to 2 gigahertz. That's what you need. Okay, so let's say this is at 2 gigahertz. Then the data that's coming in, okay, N is number of bits that you're going to get. Now this number of bits is kind of capturing the information, okay. So in the signal that's coming in, let's say the two people who are talking to each other are far away. What does that mean? That means the signal you'll receive will be strong or weak? Weak, right? You'll be getting a weak signal. However, there is another person next to you who's transmitting to somebody else. Then what would be his signal? Very, very strong, right? So now we have a very, very strong signal and very, very weak signal that I'm trying to listen to. You get my point? So which means if I have to do conversion, A to D conversion, digital conversion, then what do you have to do? You really need a very large number of steps, okay, to capture all these signals. Extremely strong signal versus extremely weak signal. So what that means is this number of bits can go to 40, 50, whatever. Okay, will be a large number of bits, and then you need a clock to process all these signals. That clock has to be very high frequency clock. Okay, so suddenly we have 2 gigahertz DSP processing 50 bits or whatever. and then you have a DAC which is again continuous. So this is very impractical. Why is it impractical? Rishabh, what do you think? Because number of bits is quite high, the frequency is very high. Generally when this happens, you need a large amount of area, you need too many devices. Also there is a lot of power dissipation. Every time you increase the clock frequency, the power goes up, right? CV square F. Alright, digital. So power and area are the main concerns. So you really don't do this. I'm just showing you something that you could imagine that you could technically do, but then it's not really practical that you can encapsulate in a very tiny chip which can be in your palm of your hands. Okay, so then as an analog designer, what are we really doing, right? So you're starting from a continuous waveform, which is, whatever the signal is, right? And then we are trying to process that signal. And then we are trying to remove unwanted signal. Okay, that's our job. And that removing process is what? It's called filtering. You filter out stuff that you don't want to keep. Okay. Have any one of you have ever seen like those old days CRT televisions? How many have you seen? How many of you know what a CRT is? Huh? Cathode ray tube. But have you ever seen it? My son, recently we went into some really remote place, and there they had this old-fashioned television, and he was so amused by it that most of the time, at that time he was 8 years old or something, he would just flip the channels, and when he flipped the channel, it would kind of roll up. Right, the picture would roll up when it tuned, and he was just amazed by that process, because none of that you see nowadays, right? On your digital television, the picture is replaced instantly because it's all pixels. In the old days, it was a CRT, which is the cathode ray tube, and if you have seen one of those televisions, there is one interesting property that you will see. Of course, none of you are probably born when India won the first World Cup, right? Probably not. I'm one of the sole survivors from that region. Okay, all right. So there, we would watch this on a television, and then the signal was very weak. Okay, so you could not make out who Kapil Dev is or who Gavaskar is. I mean, it was like but we were able to still figure out there is a ball being bowled, and it was all fuzzy because the signal was weak. When signal is strong, you can see things well, but as the signal starts getting weak, you still get a picture. But you can make out, there'll be a lot of dot, right? So the property of the analog television was that it degrades very gracefully. Even if there is a weak signal, you will still see it. So you can still hear it. So this one is also analog. So if you go far away from each other, the sound quality will deteriorate, but you can still make out what the other person is saying. On a digital side, if it's a digital TV, have you seen what happens when the signal is weak? When there are clouds in the sky, what happens? It just vanishes like that, right? So you see some big pixel, like blotches on the screen, and then it just vanishes. So the digital gives you excellent quality signal for the weakest possible signal, but then it drops like a rock, right? So of course, digital has a lot of advantages, because once you get the signal, it's clean. Okay, there is no noise in there. By nature, you are processing the purest form of what the original creators wanted it to be. But once it goes bad, it drops like a rock and you don't see anything. So ideally, what we would like to do is take the analog signal, which is out there, and we want to convert it to digital as early as possible, with the best possible fidelity. And that's our job. Okay, you cannot fight with digital guys, by the way, or software guys, but you just want to be there to give them the best possible digital signal. Okay, you want to convert the analog signals which are out there. You clean it up, you remove the unwanted signal, correct? So, for example, in the cell phone case, what is the unwanted signal? Is this some other person transmitting? You want to filter that person out. And then you want to just take the signal that you are transmitting or are supposed to receive, and then what do? Can you just directly sample it on a digital A to D converter? Because now this is 460 megahertz. So first you want to amplify it, because the signal is going to be very weak in microvolts type of numbers. So you want to amplify the signal. So you have to design amplifiers. First, we talked about filters at high frequency. Then you want to amplify it. Now, still it's at 460 megahertz. Do you really want to process at 460 megahertz? Because the signal content is, let's say, 20 kilohertz, right? Very low. So what do you want to do? You want to downshift. The downshifting process is called mixer in RF domain, okay? So with mixer, you bring it down to lower frequency, and then you, let me draw the picture for you. So first we do filtering, and then we amplify. Amplifiers are shown like a triangle, and then there's a mixer, okay, which has a reference frequency, some kind of, and then we down convert, and then we filter again. So now here the signal may be at, and this may be in 20 kilohertz range, and then we would do A to D converter. And after the A to D converter, we have bits that we have to process. So there is some digital, we call it DSP right now, and then DSP output will have a D2A converter, okay, which will again, after that you filter, remove the digital artifacts, okay, and then we amplify, and then we put it out to speaker. That's our speaker, okay. So that's the way it looks like in a real world, all right. And then if you look at some of the commercial chips, right, the block diagram looks like this. So you have a antenna coming in, okay, and then this is the analog front end, AFE, okay, and then you go into an ADC, and then you have a clock generator, and this is your output processing circuit, which will go to a speaker or something like that, okay. DAC, and then you have the DSP, okay, and then you have a microcontroller here, microcontroller, something like that. So this part is like purely analog part here, okay. This is something called mixed signal, because you're doing a lot of in between operations, and then comes the digital design or algorithm design, DSP. So many of you will be, if you ever get into chip design, you will be kind of playing in this field, okay. So the analog part is, I would like to say, is the toughest, because the computer cannot do it for you. It's a human being, it's a piece of art that you're creating all the time. All right. So in this particular class, we are not really going to go inside a chip. We're not going to design a chip in this class, okay. So in this particular class, you will be pretty much dealing with circuit fundamentals. Some of you may have done some of it during your JEE preparations, or maybe in the first class that you took. The focus is not going to be on design, because it's too early for you to do design, okay. Focus is going to be analysis. So you should be able to take a look at the circuit, and by end of this class, right, when you finish the class, you will be able to tell what's going on in this circuit. That's what you should be able to do.